Hello everyone, welcome back to Talking History. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all keeping well. If you are new here, hello, hi, you're very welcome. I promise I will look after you. My name's Liz. I am not an historian. I'm just someone who's extremely passionate about history, and I love to share all of that with all of you. So if you would be so kind, I would love it if you would press the subscribe button, and whilst you're there, hit the notification bell, which means you will get notified every time I've uploaded a video. I would be eternally grateful. So as all that out of the way, let's get into today's video. Today we are heading over to Scotland. It's been a long time since we've been to Scotland. The last time was with Malcolm the Fourth, Malcolm the Maiden. If you haven't seen that, I'll link it somewhere for you. I'm doing my little finger dance again. I will link it for you to go and watch. But for today, it's all about William the First, also known as William the Lion. Let's get to Scotland. William was born in 1142 and he was from the ruling house of Canmore. William's mother was Ada de Warenne and his father was Henry, Earl of Northumberland, son to King David I of Scotland. Now, Henry had died in 1152 before he could inherit the Scottish throne. Now, David chose his 12-year-old grandson Malcolm as his successor. Now, David died in 1153 and Malcolm became King Malcolm IV, also known as Malcolm the Maiden. Now, Malcolm was deeply religious and never married, and in 1157, during his reign, William was made Earl of Northumberland. So when King Henry II of England comes along and takes back everything he believed was rightfully his, all the English territories that David had acquired through battles and diplomacy during the anarchy. Now, William, he really doesn't want to let go of Northumberland, but he has no choice. And from then on, it becomes a lifelong obsession to get Northumberland back. Malcolm the Maiden died in 1165 of natural causes in his mid-20s, and William was proclaimed King of Scotland on the 9th of December 1165 and was invested as king at Scone on Christmas Eve, aged 22. Now, William's sister was the Duchess of Brittany, and visiting her, it gave William the chance to participate in the medieval tournaments, much like the other European kings and nobles. Now, William was quite the opposite of his brother Malcolm. William was a striking figure. He had red hair and was powerfully built. He was said to be headstrong and vicious, a man of the world, a knight, and was always ready for a battle. William's nickname, the Lion, was something that he was never called during his lifetime. It's likely taken from the animal that he had chosen as his haldic badge. Now, the badge was a red lion rampant on a yellow background, and it became the emblem of Scottish monarchs thereafter. Today is known as the Royal Banner of Scotland. As soon as William became king, he pretty much bombarded Henry with wanting Northumberland back. William joined Henry on campaign to France, and he just kept asking for Northumberland, and every time Henry refused. After that, William began making overtures to the King of France, Louis VII, Henry's rival. Now, in a letter from John of Salisbury to Thomas Becket, where he gave an example of the relationship between William and Henry, quote, "On a certain day when King Henry was at calm and was eagerly conducting the affair that he had with the King of Scotland, he broke out an insulting language against Richard de Humus, who seemed to be speaking to some extent in the King of Scotland's favour. And King Henry, roused to his usual fury, flung his cap from his head, pulled off his belt, threw far from his mantle and clothes that he had on, removed with his own hands the silken coverlet that was over the couch, and sitting as it were an immune heap, began to chew the stalks of straw." End quote. Now, the infamous story where Henry got so angry he ripped open his mattress and stuffed all the straw in his mouth. That's that story. So, William's grandfather, David, had spent years forging a unified Scottish kingdom, but after Malcolm the Fourth's lackluster reign, there was still some resistance to overlordship by the crown, and they were mainly in the southwest and far north, which William had crushed. Now, Galloway in the southwest corner of the kingdom had tried to split from Scotland, but that was crushed when William captured Gilbert Lord Galloway in 1176. Now, Galloway never truly settled back into the kingdom until 1186. Now, there was another area of trouble, the Ross region in the far north. Rebellions had been stirred up by the Earl of Orkney in 1181, 1197 and 1202. Now, the Earl was dealt with when William snatched his son as a hostage, and William had him blinded and castrated. There was another troublemaker in Ross, Donald Mac William. He was the illegitimate grandson of Duncan II of Scotland, who had ruled Scotland briefly in 1094, and he was extremely unpopular. Now, Donald Mac was killed in battle in 1187, and his head was presented to William when he was in Inverness. Now, William would continue to struggle to dominate the whole of what is today Scotland, and this led to his other nickname, William the Harsh. William expanded the sheriffdoms that was established by David I, and William continued the policy of creating royals with privileges and the protection that promoted trade, especially at Inverness, Dumfries, can't even talk now, and Perth, and the areas of Angus and Mearns, I hope I pronounced that right, were also brought under royal control. Now, justices and sheriffs were given more power, and the criminal laws were made clear across Scotland. Over in England, Henry II was dealing with his rebellious sons in the War Without Love, and Henry's eldest son, Henry the Young King, reaches out to William and offers him the northern countries of England in return for his allegiance to the young king in the rebellion. Now, the young king makes a deal with William that if they defeat the old king and Henry becomes king, he will give Northumberland back to William. Now, William, he went to his advisors, who promptly told him to leave it, stay well out. So William decides to write to Henry II saying, give me Northumberland or I'll get involved in the rebellion. And Henry says no, so William joins the rebellion. William takes advantage of Henry II being distracted with the rebellion and captures the royal castles at Burgh, I hope that's right, and Appleby in Cumbria in July 1174. Now, William invaded Northumberland, but on the 13th of July in 1174, William was caught by surprise at Alnwick Castle by a small group of English knights. William's horse was killed and fell on top of him. William because he couldn't escape, he was stuck under his horse. William was captured and he was imprisoned in Falaise in Normandy for 5 months. Now, with William captured, Henry II was now able to begin to bargain with him for his freedom. A treaty was made which formally recognised Henry's overlordship of Scotland. The Falaise Agreement, made in December 1174, on the 10th of August at York in 1175, William had to publicly surrender and give Henry control of 5 important castles: Edinburgh, Berwick, Roxburgh, Jedburgh and Stirling. And he was also insistent that William paid for the English garrisons within those castles. The treaty lasted for 15 years. In 1180, William had been on the throne for 15 years. Now, unusual for a king at that time, he was still unmarried. So William had several illegitimate children, but until he married, William's heir was his younger brother David. In 1184, William was at King Henry's court to discuss a possible marriage with Henry's granddaughter Matilda of Saxony, but the match was forbidden by the Pope. Now, in May 1186, at a council in Woodstock, King Henry suggested his cousin Umagard de Beaumont, I hope that's right, as a bride for William. Now, Ermengarde was a great-granddaughter of Henry I through one of his illegitimate daughters, Constance. And Ermengarde, with little royal blood, wasn't a prestigious match for William, but he accepted the marriage, and the wedding took place at Woodstock on the 5th of September 1186. Henry, he hosted the festivities for 4 days. Henry also returned Edinburgh Castle to William as part of Ermengarde's dowry. Now, Ermengarde's date of birth is not known, but at the time of the wedding, she was referred to as a girl, which possibly meaning she may have just reached the age of 12. William provided Ermengarde with £100 of rent and 40 nights for the financial maintenance of her household. She was also given properties and lands at Crail and Haddington, lands which were once William's mother's. Henry II had similar treaties of the overlordship for Wales in 1163 and Ireland in 1175. He now had control of the whole British Isles. With Henry II's death in 1189, his surviving eldest son, Richard the Lionheart, succeeded his father, but Richard has spent most of his reign in the Middle East on the Third Crusade, with a short stint in prison. So after Richard's death in 1199, his little brother John became king and proved to be one of England's most unpopular kings. Richard was always looking for money to fund his crusade, and through William was able to buy himself out of the overlordship that Henry had him subjected to in 1189. An agreement was signed on the 5th of December, and a new agreement gave William back the castles that Henry II took and formally declared Scotland's independence. The cost for that was 10,000 marks. A few years later, Richard, continuing to look for funds, was willing to concede Northumberland to William for the right price. It seemed that William was finally going to get what he had longed for all of his life, but Richard, he changed his mind and left England again for the last time, and Richard was killed during a siege in 1199. In the spring of 1195, William fell gravely ill, sparking a succession crisis. William's only legitimate children were daughters. The Scottish barons were divided between William's eldest daughter, Margaret, as heir, or to marry Margaret to Otto, Duke of Saxony, grandson to Henry II, allowing Otto to succeed to the throne. The other solution was William's brother David, who would succeed him. But William recovered from his illness, and 3 years later, his queen gave birth to their much desired son and heir, Alexander. The agreement William had made with Richard proved to be only a temporary one, as the next King of England had other ideas. King John, despite his reputation as an incompetent ruler, John raised a large army and forcefully resisted the incursions of William into the north of England. William was then obliged to accept John as his feudal overlord in September 1209. Now, William, under the Treaty of Norham, was obliged to pay King John 15,000 marks and give 2 of his daughters, Margaret and Isabel, as hostages to ensure compliance with his return to the full status. Now, William did get some value for his money in 1212 when John had sent an army to Scotland to help quash a rebellion aimed at removing William. In the summer of 1214, William was travelling from East Lothian to Moray when an illness that had been plaguing him resurfaced. Now William physically weak, William was gradually taken to Stirling through short journeys. It was believed that William had chose Stirling because of the healthier air. William spent time at Stirling before when suffering from illness to recuperate. Now, at Stirling, William issued his final 2 charters, the first one on the 8th of September and the last on the 25th of November. William the Lion died peacefully around 3 a.m. on Thursday the 4th of December 1214, aged 71. 6 days later, William was buried at Arbroath Abbey, which he had founded in 1178. William's daughters were still in English custody on his death, and the conditions of their release would form one of the causes of Magna Carta. Alexander succeeded William. He was proclaimed king at Scone on the 6th of December 1214, aged 16. William's queen, Ermengarde, was said to have been distraught over her husband's death. Ermengarde died 19 years later on the 11th of February 1233. William the Lion reigned as King of Scotland for 49 years, which before King James I or James VI of England, he would have been the longest reigning Scottish monarch. So, with William's marriage to Ermengarde, they produced 4 children. There's Margaret of Scotland, Countess of Kent, who was born in 1193, Isabella of Scotland, Countess of Norfolk, born in 1195, Alexander II of Scotland, born in 1198, and he succeeded his father as King of Scotland. And lastly was Marjorie, born in 1200. And there is William the Lion's story. And yeah, it's been really nice going back to Scotland. I do love Scotland. I have a fondness for Scotland. Myself and my husband's been twice. We had our honeymoon in Scotland, and it is just a beautiful, beautiful area to visit. It's such a shame that it's so far away from us. It took us 7 hours to get to Scotland, but it's worth it. Completely worth it. So there you are. Anyway, like I said, I hope I've pronounced everything properly. Please let me know if I haven't, because you all know what my pronunciations are like. They're not very good. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and just keep being you, because you're all bloody wonderful. And thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. There is more Scottish history on the way, and maybe an odd video or 2 to France. We'll see. You'll have to make sure you subscribe so you know. Anyway, I'm off. I'm going. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you are doing, and I'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye.